Hello, my name is Andrew Walsh. I am an engineer and view the world through an engineer's eyes. If you have been watching the recent news on King Trump, you have seen the mockery surrounding his proposed new battleship, called the USS Ranger, or whatever name they end up with. The media is having a field day. They are calling it a strategic dinosaur, a vanity project, a sitting duck for Chinese missiles. And while that is all true, it misses the elephant in the room. I don't care if the ship is ugly. I don't even care if it's a bad idea militarily. As an Australian taxpayer, I care about the industrial capacity required to build it, along with our promised submarines. Because that specific capacity, nuclear-ready dry docks and the naval engineers to run them, is the exact collateral we put up against a $368 billion loan called AUKUS, and Trump just spent it on a toy.
Remove those commie Danes and help make Greenland America again. Buy my beautiful battleship, only $99.99.
Let's strip away the politics and look at the throughput. This is an engineering problem. To supply the US Navy's own requirements and meet the AUKUS commitments to Australia, American shipyards need to produce 2.3 Virginia-class submarines per year. That is the break-even number. The reality? They are currently struggling to hit 1.2. That isn't a delay, that is a systemic failure. The system is redlining because of a critical shortage of nuclear-certified welders and naval architects. Now, into that fragile system, you introduce a new variable, a 35,000-ton nuclear vanity project that you might expect your senile old grandpa to think of. You would usually just nod along, agreeing with him like you do with all his crazy ideas, knowing he will have forgotten about it by the time of your next visit to the nursing home. But Grandpa now has the keys to the nuclear arsenal. He gets to enact all his dumb dreams. This battleship isn't just a boat. It is a black hole for scientific, engineering, and blue-collar talent. Of course, every hour a nuclear engineer spends designing USS Trump is an hour they aren't fixing the submarine production line. So how did we get here? Scott Morrison set this trap before the last election. He announced AUKUS as a wedge, purely to paint Labor as weak on national security if they opposed it. And Labor? They were too chicken shit to scrutinise it. They rubber-stamped the biggest defence expenditure in our history in less than 24 hours. They were terrified that the Libs would use it in a campaign ad. They traded our strategic sovereignty for a smoother election cycle. And now the bill is due. But instead of cutting our losses, our leaders have fallen for the classic sunk cost fallacy. They are terrified to admit the mistake, so they are doubling down. Right now we are wiring $4.7 billion directly to US shipyards, not to build our subs, but to upgrade their factories. And that money is non-refundable. We are sitting at a poker table with a guy who wrote a cheat code into the deck, but because we've already lost our buy-in, we just keep pushing more chips into the middle, hoping the next card saves us. It won't. The total price tag is $368 billion. That isn't a defence budget. That is a mortgage on our children's future, taken out to pay for a gambling addiction.
It must be the worst deal in all history.
Paul Keating was the only grown-up in the room. When he called AUKUS the worst deal in all history, he wasn't being hyperbolic. He was being analytical. He used a specific phrase, orphan technology. He meant that by buying a platform we couldn't build or maintain ourselves, we were making Australia a dependency of the United States. He warned that if US priorities changed, we would be left with nothing. Well, US priorities have changed. The president wants a battleship. Keating was right. We aren't just buying orphans, we are the orphan. But it's not just Keating. Malcolm Turnbull has been shouting this from the rooftops. He keeps pointing to the trap door in the AUKUS agreement. The US president cannot legally sell us a submarine if it degrades America's own naval readiness.
The American legislation says that before any submarine can be sold to Australia, the US president has to certify that their navy doesn't need it.
Back in 2025, Turnbull warned that an America First president might use that clause. It isn't a risk anymore. It is an industrial certainty. The USS Trump is cannibalizing the exact workforce needed to keep the US Navy ready. By definition, diverting those welders to a vanity project degrades US readiness below the legal threshold. The maths now makes it illegal for the president to sell us a boat. Turnbull warned us we were buying a lottery ticket. Trump just burned down the lottery office. Now the optimists will tell you, don't worry, the next president will cancel the battleship. That is irrelevant. In heavy industry, the delay is the damage. By the time the battleship is cancelled in 2030, the slot Australia bought will be gone. This is what happens when you let politicians play engineer. Morrison set the trap, Albanese walked into it. And now we are left with a bill for $368 billion and a US partner who treats us like a vassal state. So what is the solution? In engineering, when a critical system fails, you hit the emergency stop, you accept the loss, and you pivot. The rational move is to cancel the AUKUS ticket today and buy a proven conventional fleet that we can actually build. But that won't happen. Why? Because admitting the mistake would cost Albanese his job. The sunk cost fallacy has morphed into political survival. He will continue to pour billions of your tax dollars into a hole, not to build submarines, but to build a shield for his own reputation. He would rather bankrupt the country than admit he was wrong. The battleship won't float, the submarines won't arrive, but the bills, they will keep coming. That will be Albo's legacy, yet it was Morrison who set the ball rolling. A bipartisan stuff-up. That is the reality.